Hello, my name is Rick Houston, and welcome to the Scene Vault Podcast, your source for all things NASCAR history. Presented by Las Vegas Motor Speedway, America's racing showplace. At what point did you know that you were onto something with him and that team?
First time I went down the corner. People swearing up down had traction control. And Harold would point to my right foot. There's your traction control right there. When we rode through the tunnel with that Nesquik hauler, they knew that they had to beat us to be able to win the trophies. Well, after I opened my mouth, that Richard Harvick took me out, and I opened my mouth on camera, so I didn't do RCR any favors, and I understand. Richard had to let me go. I got some RC dirt cars that we play with,
Really?
run Chili Bowl and stuff like that with, so that's kind of fun, but it's pretty inexpensive, so it's all right, yeah.
The day NASCAR and all of us associated in any way with NASCAR forget its past, that's the day we don't have any future.
1999, you go to Daytona and you finish second, right out of the box. But then you go to Rockingham the next week and qualifying gets rained out. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I can see you and Greg going from truck to truck to truck to truck to work out some kind of deal to at least start the race. How many deals did you attempt that weekend?
Well, I think we talked to everybody.
Yeah.
We had the deal. Jeff Burton was in the race, and he was going to let me start his car, and Jack Rouse didn't okay it. So
really,
yeah. So Jeff was a gentleman about it. He understood, and but it didn't work. So everybody, I get it. Everybody that is running for points, they're not going to get out for that. But I don't know how many points we got beat by, but it would put us right there knocking on the door for another championship, or the first championship. So it was unfortunate, but you cannot. We couldn't control it, so that's the way it worked.
Well, evidently you responded by taking it out on everybody the rest of the year.
Yeah. Well, 99 wasn't as good as 2000, but yeah.
Well, it's still pretty doggone good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Harold, of course, was your crew chief that year. You mentioned that you had worked with him at least once or twice in the past.
Mm-hmm. Atlanta, in that Junior Johnson Cup car, and also Chad Little broke his leg, I think, at Myrtle Beach, and he had to get in his car at Myrtle Beach, and we ended up running third or fourth, I think. So, and that would have been in, I don't know, 94, I think, because I was working for Penzo. Yeah.
The two of you seemed to click.
We did
immediately. At what point did you know that you were onto something with him and that team?
First time I went down the corner. Yeah, that's about it.
Wow. Yeah.
Harold was just ahead of the game on the bodies and chassis, and he could feel. I didn't have to tell him. He could watch me, and he could read the tire temperatures and read the data off the car. He's the best there ever. He's the best there was back then. These days, the engineers are driving the cars basically. So, we had an engineer. Dan was our engineer back then, but he was, throwing springs in it and changing and building shocks. He wasn't reading any data off the car. So, Harold was just he was a racer. He grew up racing, but he had, he could massage the body to help me. He could massage the chassis to help me, the shocks and springs. And back then, you rode on springs. Now you run on bump stops and things like that. And I think that's when my career went kind of tanked out, is when we started running on bump stops and coil binding springs and things like that. It took the car feel away from me. But Harold was pretty good. I enjoyed those. I wish we could do it again,
End of the year, you were second in the. Oops. I hate it when that happens. End of the year, you wound up second in points. Even if you had led the most laps and won at Rockingham, it still wouldn't have been enough to give you the points. I think you would have been maybe still 50, 60 out, whatever. However, how much of a difference do you think that it made to miss that race?
Well, it hurt our momentum,
Okay.
for one. Going back to Rockingham, I think we were at least, we might have been fastest in practice before it rained, so we definitely had a great car. We could have led the most laps, and we could have won the race. And things might have been different along the way if we'd have got in that race and kept those points or made those points. So I don't know. It definitely gave us a better shot, and we might have took some chances along the way to get more points. I think every race we run after that, we tried to win, for sure. There's no doubt in my mind. So I don't know if it made a difference or not, but I think it gave us a better opportunity if we had that momentum, kept that momentum.
All right, so over this off season, and I'm not asking for details. Lord knows I'm not asking for details. Progressive Motorsports shut down. Kleenex went away, and the next year you were with PPC and with Nesquik. How much of a distraction was that over the off season, or was it a distraction?
Had to go to court, that was a distraction, but
Did you really?
I sure did. Yeah, we all did. It was all about paperwork, and
Yeah.
it was crazy. I'm not going to get in the middle of that, but I don't think it distracted at all. We had a bunch of great guys that worked on those cars. Jason and myself and Jason both had, and they were head down digging every minute of the day, every week. So I don't think it distracted us at all. We had a plan. We went after it, and we ended up finishing first and second in the points. So that was, I think, we showed them that we could overcome whatever we needed to. But we also had very good equipment. Had great people working on the cars. Drivers, I thought, did their job. Crew chiefs did their job. So Steve Addington was crew chief for Jason. So he's no slouch either. We had great people working on the cars, and that made Jason and I look better.
So, it certainly didn't impact your performance any. You go to Daytona, and you did wind up on your lid that year. After Daytona, was there any sense of panic or crap? That's a bad way to get a season started, or did you have the plan?
Well, I think when we left Daytona, I did that. Dang, I screwed up there. And I didn't realize that we could overcome what we left there 43rd in points, and we ended up beating them by 600 and some points. So we definitely overcome what we had, So I never, leaving Daytona, I thought, well, I guess we just need to restart and just start over, And back then, I hated restrictor play racing, and I think everybody would tell you that the season really started at Rockingham the second race of the season, or where I think it was still Rockingham the second race of the season then. But so yeah, I think we just put it behind us and kept digging. You just worked harder for the next week.
So I remember you clinching that championship. You clinched it in about May or something.
No, it was at Memphis. It was like 3 or 4 races to go. So yeah.
And I do remember that was the year that I was working on the Busch Series history book, and I did have a photo shoot at Charlotte in May with all the Busch Series champions, and I did ask you and I did ask Todd to come and be in that photo so we could have an updated photo, and you said no, you didn't want to jinx it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I think I kind of remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's before I won it. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
You didn't want a bad juju.
I was back for some reason back then. I was a little bit superstitious. I put my left glove on every time, put my left ear plug in each time.
Did you really?
Oh yeah. And I'd try to do the same things before on the race day that I did last week. So I don't know. It's crazy, but I was younger and things were working, and I didn't want to try to uphold that. And I'm sure that's why I did that. Did you put me in the picture?
No.
Oh, you did?
No. What did you have that year that nobody else had?
Harold Holly. There's no doubt in my mind. And Greg for giving us the pieces. Without Greg Pollex, we wouldn't have been able to do it. I don't remember, the last 10 or 15 years you go to the racetrack and you worry about getting tires and paying the bills. And back then, I never I mean, unless they kept it from me, I never remember anybody worried about buying tires and having enough tires sitting on pit road for us to race that race, you know.
Yeah.
So without Greg, we wouldn't have been able to do it. But Harold was the key. I mean, he worked day and night to make that car where I could drive the crap out of it.
All right, so it was Harold Holly, and Harold Holly could be creative when he wanted to be. Mm-hmm. How creative was he on that car?
Well, I think he pushed the rules. I mean, you're not cheating unless you get caught. But I remember him taking a seat out at South Boston. They took a seat out and all the ignition boxes, and people swearing up down had traction control. And Harold would point to my right foot. There's your traction control right there, you know. So anyway, we didn't. To my knowledge, we never cheated one bit. But every rule that there was, he took it to the limit, and that's how you win. And that's really why I really don't like the racing today, because you're so much in a box. Yeah. I mean, they tell you what you have to have, and you cannot get over that box. And back then, you could be creative, and if I needed the car to turn a little better, he could work on the front end and make it turn better, you know what I mean? So now you can't do that.
So you didn't have traction control?
No, sir. Never.
All right.
No.
You and David had this.
I did. It's right here.
No.
Yeah.
You and David had this awesome race at Pikes Peak that year. And I know what it was like watching that from the press box and knowing the relationship and the brothers and all that. What was it like from the seat of your race car?
It's pretty awesome. I mean, people ask me all the time what my favorite race was, and since I won, I could say Pikes Peak. But to be able to race your sibling and knowing that he's not going to take any more room than he has to, and hopefully he knows the same thing about me, that was a special product. He actually passed me with about 10 to go, and I was able to get back by him, and to be able to race, and that was really to my knowledge, the only race that we ever really ran like that, you know, to be able to finish like that. So it's pretty awesome. I've got the trophy, pretty cool trophy, and Pikes Peak was such a entertaining racetrack anyway. I wish they still go there. It would be awesome. But it was a driver's racetrack. You could make it or break it, and for us to be 1 and 2 at the end of that day is pretty awesome.
So when David comes over to visit or whatever, do you make sure that trophy is somewhere where you can see it?
I need to, don't I? I don't know if he's probably not smiling as much as I am over that day, but I would think if you ask him, he was pretty happy that day also.
What did it mean to you to walk away from the banquet that year with the big trophy? Never mind the check. What did it mean for you to walk away with that big trophy?
Well, that's what you go for. I mean, that's what you ultimately want. I mean, anytime a football player wants to win the Super Bowl and a race car driver wants to win the Daytona 500 or win the championship. So to be able to put a whole season together, the way we did it was pretty awesome too, you know, to be able to be that dominant. We had pretty sure 26 top fives out of 32 races, so a couple of them was wrecks that we didn't run in the top 5, so pretty awesome season. I don't think you could write it any better. If you sit down and say, well, I'm going to do this and do that, I don't think you could write it any better. And we were in contention every week. And like I said earlier, when we rode through the tunnel with that Nesquik hauler, they knew that they had to beat us to be able to win the trophy. So that's the best feeling any race car driver could have.
I'm going to make this statement, but if I'm not mistaken, that was the last, to this day, the last pure Busch Series championship for a team that was not affiliated.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
What does it mean to you to have that distinction?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, Mark Martin came and raced with us all the time, and they just didn't have a team that would run the whole series, you know, and somebody else drive it maybe, but I think back then the Cup drivers could run any time they wanted to. I think so. But I don't, you know, and I hear the question all the time. You know, did you like those guys running? I loved it. I mean, if you beat Mark Martin, you've done your job that day. So, to me, you know, setting out when I started NASCAR racing is to win the championship. And anything you do in life, I think the ultimate goal is to be a champion and to be the best there is. And we were the best there was that day. 99 I run second, and in 2001 I run second. So we had 3 really, really good years right there. And Harvick beat us in 01, and we were right there with him the whole year trying to win another championship, but just to come up a little short.
Did you have a chance to talk to Dale after your championship or during that season at all to maybe come to grips a little bit?
We walked, not really. You didn't see him too much, but walking down pit road, was run the IROC race in 01, the weekend he got killed at Daytona. Michelle and I was walking down pit road, and here come him and Teresa, and he said, "What's up, champ?" So that felt good, to be able to, say, kind of, him agree that I was good enough to be a champion. So that's pretty awesome.
April 2001, you started running the 30 car for RCR. How did that come about?
Well, Dale getting killed, basically.
Yeah.
Harvick was going to run the AOL 30 car, not drive the 29 car because of Dale. But I think I was the best one that they could pick from at the time. I had the most experience and hopefully the most talent. Unfortunately, that me and Harvick didn't see eye to eye, and we raced our guts out the year 01.
Yeah.
Pretty much, and so they was going to start that 30 team. To answer your question, they was going to start the 30 team, and they run a couple times throughout 2001 to be ready for 2002. So I was the one that was going to basically test their car and raced in a few races. So
now, was the 10 car, was it a Ford?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any conflict between your Busch deal and your Cup deal? Was there,
I don't remember. Those Nesquik guys were mad at me, but,
sponsor-wise or team-wise?
Team, the guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I could not pass that deal up. That was an opportunity to go run Cup races or Cup seasons with a quality team, with quality people. So I could not pass that up. And I think they ended up agreeing, or they probably trying to get under my skin more than anything. But I don't remember Ford or Chevrolet having any problem with it. So
I do remember Memphis that year, and you and Kevin got into it pretty good.
Yeah, I think he ended up winning, right? And I run second, I think.
Yeah.
But we were always around each other.
Yeah.
And Kevin, he wouldn't think twice, turn you sideways to pass you. You know what I mean? And I was trying to be like my big brother David and be as nice as I could every time I passed somebody. And if I couldn't, I remember the year, the 01, maybe 2000. I had an opportunity. I run second, but I got to the guy that I think it was Jay Sauter leading, and I got into him a little bit, and I backed off and let him straighten out, and LaJoy passed us both. So I tried to be a gentleman as best I could, and without tearing my car. My focus was not to tear the car up, but to win the race. And sometimes you have to let off to do that, So, so I don't think me and Harvick, we never were good teammates, and it ended up biting me at the end result. But went over there in 2002, and I thought we had a pretty good. I think we finished 17th in the points, and we had a few top 5 finishes, and I don't think RCR was on top of the game at that point. At that particular point of the team, the team wasn't as good as I thought that we might need to be. So, but it was a career change for me, and tried to make the best of it.
So you went over to that team in April of 01. And I'm sure that organization was still reeling from everything that had happened in February.
Absolutely.
What was it like to jump into the middle of that?
I think they was looking straight ahead. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't think they were looking in the mirror at all. They were trying to rebound off something that could have put them under. And Harvick was able to win in that car, and I don't know it. I don't remember me going over there that early. I thought the only race I run was like Bristol or something, and that would have been in the second August race, I thought.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'd never seen any, backing up at all. All I saw was people looking forward, trying to make the teams better.
2003, you and Steve Park basically swapped rides, and you went to from RCR to DEI. How was that deal done?
Well, after I opened my mouth at Richmond, Harvick took me out, and I opened my mouth on camera, and so I didn't do RCR any favors, and I understand. Richard had to let me go, so DEI was not happy with Park, and so it was just an opportunity through Chevrolet there for us to switch, and that it worked. Went over there and run good right away, and got some few races out of them too. So. It was a bad deal. I mean, I remember Steve Burns interviewing me, and I just felt like the 29 car was getting not all the good stuff, but they got everything. If they had a motor that was five horsepower more, it went in the 29 car, not the 30.
Yeah.
And things like that. So it just snowballed, and him wrecking me. I think I was third or fourth, and on a restart, and he wrecked me, and. I just told him I thought he was better than that, and he said he made a mistake, which he might have, but I don't think he did. So, just bad deal.
You did go over to DEI for several races that summer. What was the dynamic between you and Dale Jr. and Michael? The previous relationships that you'd had.
I don't remember really us sitting down a lot. I don't. It seemed like I was kind of not in the team. Basically, I was just maybe filling in, as a driver, and I don't know. I just don't feel like that every team I've been on, we'd sit down, we'd sit down and talk about things, have meetings. I don't remember having a lot of meetings over there, so I don't think, not that Dale Jr. or Mike was any cause of it. I just don't think the team those teams were being run right that particular time. So, different situation, but I mean, I was able to get a few races over there and got me to the next opportunity. So,
I was trying to think last night, coming up with questions and everything. I don't know that anybody else has ever driven the 3 car and the 43 car. Tell me a story about Richard Petty that would surprise people. Not necessarily ugly, but just a story about him that would surprise people.
Well, I told you earlier that I was trying not to drive for another driver. You know what I mean? So
okay, all right.
But from between Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty is totally different worlds. I mean, he would sit there and talk to you and not blame you for anything. Richard would.
Yeah.
And to be able to console you basically and try to help you in a different manner.
Yeah.
Not tell you, he was just trying to help you in a different manner. And I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, Richard Petty he's a monarch.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the best of both worlds. He's a great guy. I think he's the best boss I've probably ever driven for. And he was a driver too. So that's my theory kind of went out the window. But to be able to drive for him was, I mean, I've driven for Richard Childress, Dale Earnhardt, Junior Johnson, Richard Petty. That was after Adam had passed too, and I think a lot of Petty Enterprises went away after that. I mean, just their heart kind of was gone.
Yeah.
We struggled a little bit, but I think our team struggled. I mean, we had some good runs, I guess, but we could have been better. But Petty Enterprises was probably one of the better race teams I've driven for as far as people and down to earth people, nice people.
Yeah.
That sport is pretty cutthroat, and I'm sure it's got worse. But back then it was, everybody's wanting your job, and if you did something wrong, it got multiplied, and things like that. But Richard Petty was a good one. I don't really have any really stories I can tell you about him. But
Okay.
he's the kind of guy that if you seen him today, he would, he'd be like you seen him yesterday. He's the best friend I ever could be. So him and Dale Earnhardt the same way. Dale Earnhardt was, without Dale Earnhardt at that shop, it'd be different. You know what I mean? He was a racer too, and he was able to help you and help you in a nice way. I mean, not help you in a mean way. So I think sometimes that goes along a lot further in my mind. I mean, I got thick skin, tell me, but don't be mean about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think Richard's probably one of the better guys there ever was.
You drove a couple of seasons for Gene Haas, and after that, you dropped back to a pretty limited schedule for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Were you just recharging at that point? Were you just reevaluating this whole deal, in your place in it?
I think I pretty much gave up. I got tired of people wanting your job. I got tired of worrying about next year. You know what I mean? And I think the cars that I was driving wasn't capable of running in the top 10. We was able to do that a few times, but in the Cup Series, I mean, it'll beat you up.
Yes,
I mean,
it will. Yeah.
You can be a 10th off and you were 30th instead of 10th. So I think I just got burnt out traveling, burnt out on people, and I think I just need to relax and kick back. And right after that, we moved back to Kentucky. So it got me away from everything, and I wasn't in the middle of anything, so that probably hurt my chances of getting something better, And I was getting older. I mean, I was, 45 or something.
Yeah.
So, it's too old to be really chasing too much. And honestly, I wouldn't be in racing if I had to do it like they do today.
Yeah.
Back then, an owner hired you because you could drive the crap out of their car.
Yeah.
And bring it home in one piece. Nowadays, it is what it is. So,
I'm just going to make an observation, but to hear Jeff Green say that he ever gave up, 1999, 2000, 2001, you were like a dog on a bone every week at the racetrack. What was it like personally those 2 years?
oh, it was awesome.
No, I'm talking about when you step back to the limited schedule and move back to Kentucky. Was it hard emotionally?
It would have been if I'd stayed in North Carolina, I think.
Okay.
I think moving to Kentucky got me away from it. Sure, I still watched it on TV and still had a lot of friends in the business. So, I don't know. I've been racing something since I was 8.
Yeah.
So to be 40 some odd, it was time to take a break. You know what I mean? So I felt like my career was good enough that I could say that. I mean, I don't think I needed to prove anything else.
Yeah.
Not that I have an ego, but anytime you want to do it right, try to do it right, and I felt like we did it right. So, and honestly, I think I just got tired. I think I got tired of people running you to death.
Yeah.
And not living life. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it was a job, and it was a job 7 days a week.
For the last several years of your career, you did a lot of starting parts.
Mm-hmm.
After the success you'd had, were you just having fun at that point? Were you just trying to build those deals into something more? Were you just trying to make a little money? Or what was going on there?
Well, I think I started with Mark Smith, and Eric McClure was there, and I was helping him a little bit on coaching, trying to get him better. And the starting part come up to be able to have me there, I guess you might say. Making money a little bit, yeah. I mean, I was paying the bills doing that. And I was still at the racetrack. So anytime an opportunity come up, you got to be there. You know what I mean? So Eric got sick a few races and got hurt a couple races. I was able to race his car. It wasn't what I wanted to do, starting part.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. But I was able to run a few races doing that. And still making laps and still getting to feel the race car. So trying to make myself better if something did come up. And that all that happened at about the time when guys started coming in with paying their ways, paying the way. I've driven race cars all my life, and I'm making money doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay to do it, and I don't have the talent to go out here and beg people to give them money. You know what I mean? And I don't want to do that. So it was just an opportunity to me to be at the racetrack, make a little money doing it, and have a good time. I mean, when I worked for Ryan Sieg last couple of years, car chief for him, crew chief to car for him, and that was fun. Something different, but still not living life really. You're still on the road, and even when we moved back to Kentucky, now I got to go to the airport, setting airlines, wait on them. So it's a day out, day back. Every time you go to a racetrack. So that just made life tough, and I'm 60 now, so hopefully I can enjoy life a little bit.
Where was I going to ask? Where's my question? You tweeted a couple of years ago that you were officially retired as a driver. Was that a decision that you had made over time, or was there a specific point where you said, "Okay, that's it, I'm done"?
Well, I'm old enough. You know what I mean? Michelle said it's time. Also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's right. And the opportunities. Yeah, I mean, if Joe Gibbs called me and wanted me to drive his car,
Yeah.
it'd be tough for me not to say yes. I'll be right there. So the opportunities are very, 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 very limited. And something that can go out and be in the top 5 and win the race. That'd be the only thing I'd be waiting on. These days it's not going to happen. So might as well kick back and enjoy it a little bit. And I've got a shop here that I build hot rods in and hunt deer, hunt turkey, and Michelle's families are big farmers. Been helping them a little bit farm and just trying to enjoy it a little bit. So yeah, I mean, to say I'm ever going to drive a race car, probably not going to happen again.
Do you race anything? Do you still have a Legends car?
No, I sold it.
You raced
Yeah.
one of those at one time.
I did, yeah. When we lived in Charlotte, I had one just to go out there and play on Tuesday nights. But I've got some RC dirt cars that we play. We
Really?
go run Chili Bowl and stuff like that
Okay.
with. So that's kind of fun, but it's pretty inexpensive. So it's
Yeah.
all right. Yeah. Michelle said okay to that.
All right, last question. Let's say that you and David and Mark are in equal Legends cars. Who's going in that race?
Mark. No doubt. There's no doubt. Mark's been doing his Legends car a long time, but he's just way smoother than I ever could be. And David, he's not going to do it. So he's got a car himself. He runs a little bit, but he's just David's tied up in his work. I mean, he's got a great job with NASCAR, and I think he loves every minute of it. So, and Mark's, works for Rev Racing, coaching drivers. So, they've got 2 good jobs, and they'll never move back to Kentucky. They'll die over in North Carolina, and hopefully they're enjoying it. I don't know. I thought a few times about maybe working in NASCAR, but then you got to travel again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, traveled for. I guess last year was my 32nd year on the road, so I'm tired. I'm not tired. We need to enjoy life. My dad died at 77, and I'm 60, so 17 years go by pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to enjoy it a little bit if I can.
Surely, to goodness, you have given David a hard time about going over to the dark side.
I have. He just grins. He gives that green look. Yeah. But all in all, our family, we've been blessed with NASCAR. NASCAR's been good to us. Auto racing's been good to us. Pretty much all my family work in it or have worked in it. Both Mark's kids are. Rachel, she works for Marcus Smith, and Tyler's a spotter, and Austin, he's running a Trans Am series now.
Yeah.
So, pretty lucky, pretty blessed.